Thanks. As I said, my name is Telmo Cardoso. I work in mobile automation at WIT Software. WIT is a software company that creates advanced solutions for mobile industry, telecommunications industry. So several of our apps require specific SIM cards to be in it, along with other restrictions. So we mostly run our tests in local servers and using real devices, which adds some more challenges. So the goal of this talk is to discuss those challenges and to show the solutions we come up with. These are far from optimal solutions, are just the solutions we have implemented, but it would be great if you could approach me during the rest of the day with the solutions you have implemented for similar problems. So we run the tests internally at WIT, but our clients also run the automated tests using our automation framework. So we had to build an automation framework using Cucumber, Maven, JUnit, of course, Appium, and doing the continuous integration in the Jenkins. And our applications required a lot of interaction between different devices because there are chat applications. So the devices, we give them in Jenkins to decide what devices will run the tests, or if we do not give anything, then the framework will decide randomly from the connected devices. We already have a large base of Cucumber steps, and each step, for example, the third step in here, in the final report, will be something as, then the device nexus starts a group chat with user A and user B. But of course, the same step can be used to create a single chat, an SMS broadcast, an MMS group. Likewise, we are sending text in here, but the same step can be used to send a location link in SMS or to send random file transfer, and our framework will decide if it will send an image, a video, etc. So we made it this way because our clients can run not only our suite of tests, but they can create their own suite of tests by rearranging the steps or changing the parameters for each steps. So, of course, with this, the client naturally wants to control everything that interacts or influences the app behavior. So we had to build Cucumber steps that supported things like changing the device connection, creating contacts on native device, sending messages independently of the characters being used, emojis included, mock battery conditions, handle push notifications on devices, manage calls, or even push files to the devices. And we are always talking about real devices. So these are the Appium server and Java client versions that I use for these solutions. This matters because some of the solutions will not work in previous Appium server and client versions, and also because it is highly likely that these solutions will become deprecated in upcoming releases. I launch my server Appium with a relaxed security and the session override arguments. This is required because some of the methods require the relaxed security argument. So starting from the device connection, it's one of the most requested on forums. Before we need to change anything, we need to see what's the current status of our connection. We can use the getConnection method that will return the current status of our connection. And if we do need to change the connection, then for Android, for Wi-Fi, we have this setConnection method, but unfortunately, it does not work on several of real devices. So we can luckily use the alternative, the Toggle Wi-Fi one that sends this ADB command. But what we are doing here is we are enabling the Wi-Fi model. We are not sure if we are connected to any access point. So in order to do that, we can use this ADB command and look for the current state information until it gives us the complete state. At that point, we know that we are connected to an access point and we can proceed with the tests. in order to run these ADB commands that I've been showing you, we can use the execute script with the mobile shell that was implemented in latest Appium release. I think it's the 1.8 that will be launched next week. I have one problem with this command. Apparently, it returns the standard output, and sometimes we also need the standard error to know what went wrong. If you have permissions to run commands locally, you can do that yourself by running the ADB commands and get the standard output and the standard error. Probably in the upcoming releases, it will also send the standard error. Okay, so for data mobile, as expected, the set connection also does not work on several real devices. The problem is that the toggle data also does not work on several real devices. We have tried a couple more ADB commands, but all of them failed in one device or another device. So the only solution we have so far is to launch the native data mobile activity that handles the switch to turn on or off the data mobile. You can, again, run the first ADB command using the execute script or the start activity method that Appium also provides. When we are on the native activity, we look for the first switch element, and we tap on it. If there is none, we look for the checkbox element, and we tap on it. Also, on some devices, a confirmation dialog appears, and we just look for the text yes or OK, or the correspondent localization string, because we automate in several languages. Or you can use the positive IDs that most Androids use. I normally use a regex find element in order to ignore the package name and just have the IDs. So some devices do not have the same data mobile activity. I have found two on the ones we run. It's a Huawei and the Asus one. But in debug mode, if you open the activity you want, you can run the get current package and the current activity to get that information. Or you can run this command directly if you prefer it. So for the same actions for iPhone, we have three alternatives. The first one, we can just swipe from the bottom to open the control center, and we look for the elements that controls Wi-Fi and data mobile. With the get attribute value, you can see the current state is it, and if we need to change it, we just tap on it. The problem I had with this approach is that on some iPhones, running some specific iOS versions, I cannot open the control panel. Also, the data mobile option is only present on iOS 11, and we also automate iOS 10. Another alternative is to use the capabilities to launch directly the settings app. You can also use this capability to launch any native application. It's quite easy to find the bundle IDs for iOS 10 and iOS 11 native applications. Again, the problem I have with this approach is that I need to terminate the tests I'm running in order to relaunch a new session with this capability. And after I change what I need to change in settings application, I need to again create a new session to continue my tests. So normally we use this third hypothesis that we run that run app in background command with a -1 so that our app does not come back to foreground. That's the normal usage if you place a positive number in there. And then we search for the settings icon. I normally place all the applications I will use in the bottom dock so that they are always visible independently of the page we are in the home screen. We automate what we need inside the settings application. iOS 10 and iOS 11 are quite similar, so it's a simple, straightforward script. And then we go back to our application using the Activate app with the bundle ID of our own application. This run app in background with the -1 was implemented like 1 year ago. And before that, for this third hypothesis, what we were going to the native notifications panel. Then we swipe right in order to show the Siri app suggestions. Before, we need to make sure that our settings application would appear there, and then this would happen still. So we need to make a lot of math in order to know the coordinates of the setting app independently of the iPhone we were using. So thanks a lot for that pull request 1 year ago for the run in background. So another challenge that we have is we need to create contacts on the device. That later on the automation will use those contacts. In iOS, it's quite simple. We just, again, go to background, we open the contacts application, and we automate it. iOS 10 and 11, it's the same script. For Android, we use this intent that opens the native contacts activity with all the fields already filled with the name and the email, phonetic name, company, etc. All of the fields available are in this link on the bottom. Then we just look for the save or save in upper cases in the text or content description. I already have found one device that have done in content description. And some devices also appear a confirmation dialog, and you just have to handle it as before. Another challenge, we need to send the messages with all characters, emojis included. So in iPhone, we have still a limitation. We cannot send emojis or characters that have more than one character count. There's an issue open in Appium, and it's marked as enhancement. Let's see if it will be addressed soon or not. For Android, naturally, we use the Appium Unicode keyboard with the Unicode keyboard and the Reset keyboard capabilities. We did have one problem. If a test is interrupted before it ends, then the Appium keyboard will be the default one. And in the upcoming tests, the Appium keyboard will always be the default one. So in the client environment, where they switch a lot the devices between manual and automated tests, there were a lot of complaints that the devices had no keyboard. So we stopped using the Reset keyboard capability, and we implemented ourselves. We just get the keyboard the same way as the Reset keyboard capability does. We save it. When the test terminates, either it passes or not, we apply the keyboard. But if when we get the keyboard, we see that it's the Appium keyboard, that it's the default one, then we get the list of all of the keyboards present in the devices. We eliminate the ones that we know are not suitable, such as the Appium, Visor, voice search for Google, and we randomly save one of the others, and when the test terminates, we apply that one so that there are not complaints that the keyboards are missing. Another problem we had was with KitKat devices that our clients still want us to support, because the UI Automator 2 does not work very well with KitKat devices, and the old UI Automator has some problems sending some complex characters. Luckily, we have found this ADB keyboard open source project. We just installed this as a default keyboard. We transform the text we want to send into Unicode code point with this method, and then we just used that ADB command to send the text to the active field. So another challenge to mock battery conditions. On iPhone, we were not able to do it yet. We are talking about real devices. On Android, it's quite easy to do it. There are several commands to set the status of the battery, the level of the battery. Just remember not to set the level to 0 or the device will restart. And in the end of the test, it either passes or not. We need to always run the battery reset method. So our applications are able to send and receive messages using push notifications. So this we also had to support in automation. It's quite easy. We just kill the app with this new terminate app method that Appium as. Then we force the push notification to be sent. We just open the notification panel. We verify that the push notification is well received. And after we activate our app again. This works both for iOS and Android. For Android, there's also another way. We can place Android 6 or above in the DOS mode. We just mock that there is no battery plugged. We place the device to sleep, and we run the device idle step until it returns with idle. At that point, it is in DOS mode, so we can do the same confirmation of the push notification being received. And after, we just wake up the device, and we reset the battery conditions again. OK, to manage calls in iOS, again, it's fairly simple. We go to background. We open the manage calls application. We start the calls we want. In order to accept an incoming call, it's the same. We wait for the incoming screen to appear. It's just one in iOS 10 and 11. And we accept or we terminate the call. In Android, of course, there are thousands of different call applications. But we can start the call using this intent. And we can accept or terminate the call with these key codes. But of course, in order to accept or terminate the call, we need to know if we are receiving a call or not. So we can use this method to know the status of the calls in the device. When it's an incoming, we can accept it or reject it. Another challenge was to push files to the devices. In Android, this is fairly easy. We just use the push file method. Jonathan has a great article about this in Appium Pro. We did have a problem with a specific brand that was not respecting the intent to refresh the SD card. We did overcome it, but it was a long problem, so that will stay to another talk. On iOS, we were also forced to use a third-party app. In this case, we used Dropbox, but there are other online services. We used their API to upload the images and videos we want. Then the images and the videos get synchronized to the Dropbox app running in the device. And we go to background, we open their app, we go to the files we want, and we save them into the device gallery. At that point, we go back to our application, and we can continue, and those files will appear in the gallery. So, of course, we needed to extract logs as well as screenshots because, as I said, our clients run our automation tool, and very often they look at the report and they cannot see if it's a problem with the app, the server, the network, our framework. So they send us the reports, and we need all of the information to see where the problem is coming by. So we can get the system logs by using the syslog or the get logcat. This has a limitation of buffer of 10,000 lines. This limit will be not present in the pull request that is being done. I think there was a line that is appeared on the bottom with a link, but when the slides will be shared, it will be there. In order to get those system logs without this 10,000 lines limitation, you can use this iDevice syslogs or the ADB logcat directly. These commands are in red because we cannot use the execute script to run them. OK. This is the pull request to broadcast the logcat via WebSocket that is being done. Also, to get the performance logs, we can, for Android, use the get performance data method. We just need that capability, the enable performance logging. Again, there's an excellent article about this in Appium Pro. And in order to extract the server logs, we can get this get server. We can enrich those logs by using the show iOS log or the show Xcode log. And most important of all, for the application logs, in Android, it depends a lot on how your applications are implemented. or our own applications, we have an entry point that extracts the logs to the SD card, and then we just ADB pull them and embed it into the report. For iOS, normally in debug mode, there's a folder that is used by the application, the documents, and the logs normally are placed inside one folder in there. You can use this iOS deploy tool to extract those logs and to embed into the report. Okay, so I have a couple other hints that we use in our projects. There's a problem with unlocking real devices, Android, Nougat, and above, I think. If you do have permissions to run local commands, you can wake up the device before trying to instantiate the driver, and that will bypass those problems. This is unlocked without any security on the device. So a simple swipe will unlock the device. Another question that appears a lot in forums is how to enable disable location services. You can use these ADB commands. There is an Appium method, but it is failing a lot on real devices when it tries to use the key codes 22 and 61 to go back and forward. But soon it will be fixed, probably. I'm just using this talk to make them fix things that I need.
I'll make some comments when I get up there.
So the change language and country in emulators, it's simple. I think there are locale and country and the language capability. But in real devices, on iOS, you need again to go to background and you go to the switch language menu. When you do switch the language, the iPhone will kill all of the enabled connections. So you need to wait some time, and then you need to use the launch app in order to restart the session with the new language and continue the tests. For Android, we installed this ADB change language app into the devices. We give it permissions, and then when we need to change the language, we just use this language and country code. I think in latest release, it will be possible for you to indicate which apps you want to install on the device before the tests. So probably Jonathan will confirm it or not. Next. This is already deprecated with the next release. There is a method now to set clipboard and get clipboard. But if you do need to use Appium in older versions, we use these open source projects to write and read from the clipboard. And on the latest Android, we can paste it directly on the active fields. Okay, I think I have 5 minutes. I don't know if everybody wants to go to lunch, right?
Sorry, we ran.
Okay.
We need to get going to lunch, but
Sure.
Everyone give it up for Tomo. Yeah.